God.
Wow, some really heavy breathing there. You can hear the fear in her voice. A tornado hitting homes and businesses in Illinois, sending debris flying. This was this afternoon in Kelowna, Illinois. Now we have watches out tonight for these areas, and they are all severe thunderstorm. Now you see the tornado watch there. That has now been replaced by a new severe thunderstorm watch, which is out until 4 a.m. Central Daylight Time. Again, Iowa into Illinois. So again, what you're looking at now is all severe thunderstorm watches extending all the way from Wisconsin right on down into Oklahoma. I'm meteorologist Jeff Morrow. Thanks for joining us for our special severe coverage tonight. We'll begin with a look at storms that are still going on. It's quieted down a little bit. No tornado warnings, but we do have some severe thunderstorm warnings. Here's Carl.
Yeah, we are watching some severe storms tonight. Large hail seems to be among the primary concerns that we're looking at across parts of the upper Midwest. But yes, not nearly as busy as it was, say, a few hours ago. Let's begin with a look at where the storms are in parts of the upper Midwest. So we're looking at northern Illinois as well as into Wisconsin. Greene and Rock counties under warning until 10:30 for the possibility of some large hail that moving up towards Janesville. In fact, I'm going to zoom in a little bit on that and we'll get a better look at where that's going to be headed as that continues northward near Monroe right now and moving towards the northeast. So that'll be moving into Albany and coming into Cooksville as well. And then farther west, now right along the Iowa and Wisconsin state line, Clayton County under warning here for a possibility of some large hail. That's eventually going to come towards Prairie du Chien, so heads up on that. Gutenberg more immediately. Looks like that cell might be weakening a little bit, which is not surprising. It's actually getting a little north of the warm front. And now we've got storms coming into the Kansas City metro. Leavenworth, Platte, and Wyandotte counties under warning until 10:15. And we're looking at the possibility of some large hail along with these cells. Now, these storms are not moving anywhere near as quickly. Actually, no, this one is moving pretty quickly. It's moving 65 miles per hour, so I take that back. And so this is going to be rapidly coming into the northwest side of the Kansas City metro area. And let's track that out and show you who that's going to be affecting here. Looking at the possibility of large hail, that is the worry with this cell. So that moving into Leavenworth as well as Lansing and Waldron, also coming into Vinewood. Quarter-size hail is going to be the threat on the northwest side of the Kansas City metro area. And we're seeing some storms now in southern parts of Kansas, but no warnings on those as of yet. And another area we've been keeping a very close eye on is here in Arkansas. We've seen a little bit of development, but it's just not getting going. And that's a good thing because we've got a lot of wind shear in place here, and these storms could be fierce if they were able to go. Now, here you see the parent storm, very strong trough in the atmosphere, big upper level low pressure system that's coming through right through there. Very strong winds at several levels of the atmosphere. So, that's one of the requirements for severe weather. We've got that certainly tonight. We've got a lot of instability. You notice the legend up here on the left-hand side. So we go from low to moderate to getting into the high ranges. In some parts of the plains, you might be thinking, well, gosh, why aren't we seeing just a ton of activity tonight? Well, part of the reason is that we've got some convective inhibition. And what that is a layer of very warm air, not very warm, but relatively warm air that is, a little ways up in the atmosphere. And so the profile is such that if you've got a rising storm, a storm that's trying to develop, as long as it's surrounded by increasingly cooler air, well, then it's going to continue to rise. But if it gets to a point at which it is no longer warmer than the surrounding environment, it's going to stop rising. So it's going to be suppressed, essentially. And that's what this inhibition is doing, is it's suppressing thunderstorm development in these areas. And so the big question has been, how much of that could be removed here across the Mid-South, especially as we go deeper into the night, as the winds get stronger in several levels of the atmosphere? Because looking at 2 o'clock in the morning, what we see is that there is going to be a lot of low-level wind shear. These are surface winds that are coming out of the south. These are winds at 5,000 feet coming out of the southwest at 50, 60 miles per hour and getting stronger as we go through the overnight hours. So there's going to be a terrific amount of low-level wind shear if storms were to develop in that environment, they would begin to rotate because of that wind shear, and they would develop tornadoes most likely. The big question is just how much of that development are we going to see? And in fact, when you look at one of our high resolution models here, you see that line of storms continues to extend farther south down into Oklahoma. So certainly some wind and hail possible in those areas, but we really don't see much coverage in parts of Arkansas. You see, there's just a little bit of development here and there. And, this high resolution model comes out every hour, and it's been kind of back and forth about this idea. Like one run will show some development, another run won't, another one will. And so the idea is that the model is also struggling with the fact that you've got this warmer layer loft, this capping layer loft. What exactly is that going to mean? Are we going to see much development? It may be that we don't see that much development going through the night tonight. We can all hope for that. Let's hope that that's the case. But if we do see stronger storms getting going with that shear profile, then they could very well be tornado-producing storms. So just be on your toes tonight. Have a way to be notified. Have a way to be aware of what's going on. You notice we do see, finally, as the front itself is coming through, we do finally see some storms getting going around Fort Smith, starting to come into the western part of the state. That moves through central parts of Arkansas into the morning hours and right through the middle of the day tomorrow. So we've still got a 7 out of 10 on the Torcon here for parts of Arkansas and Missouri, but this is sort of a conditional forecast. This is dependent upon whether or not we see much development of storms, and we may not see that much development of storms. Let's hope that that's the case. We can't guarantee it, but Jeff, we can hope that that is going to be the case because, we've certainly have had an awful lot of weather in recent weeks.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's get to some new video, at least a new view of some tornado footage here. Again, we showed this to you a little bit earlier. This is during the latter part of the life cycle of this particular tornado. There you can see the debris kind of envelope, if you will, or curtain around the base as it was touching. But notice how it goes up and then makes a left-hand turn. It's really stretching out or roping out, as folks in meteorology like to say. Again, this is toward the end of the life cycle, Carl.
Yeah, it's really neat because, the thing that comes around and kind of kills us off is called the rear flank downdraft. And, it's got this shape where the bottom part of it is rushing out faster. And so that's why the tornado also takes on that shape because, that cool air is starting to come out and really starting to choke it off a little bit. But it's really amazing to see. I'm always fascinated by these front lit tornadoes where you can very clearly see the cloud there. That's called the condensation funnel, and that is cloud that you're looking at there in that white. And then, oftentimes when you see a tornado that's sort of, dark or, very black colored, that can be either that it's, either being backlit or it can be that there's a lot of dust that's wrapping up into it. You see the dust envelope at the bottom of the circulation there, but you can also very clearly see the cloud that's developed as a result.
And that cloud is spinning like this.
And the cloud is spinning, yes,
Yeah.
it is, and spinning very rapidly. In fact, I saw some other chaser video. I don't know if we're going to get that. Apparently it was really violent.
Yeah.
Right at the bottom, it's what they call a drill bit tornado because it's got such fast, very, a relatively small area that's just really, really, really going. So it was intense. It was in the middle of a field. Mm-hmm. I don't know that it did any structural damage because it was out in the, that's one good thing about tornadoes in the plains is they oftentimes just go through fields. But wow, that was an exciting moment there.
It was an exciting moment for the chasers here, and looks like they caught pretty much just about the whole life cycle, this again toward the end. All right, let's go to some other video here. All it takes is a hefty gust of wind, and whoop, there goes your roof right off your building.
There goes the roof. There it goes.
Yep, there it goes. Goodbye, roof. This is from earlier today in Rock Island, Illinois. The person who submitted this says they did lose some power, but everyone was okay. We often think of the storm winds and, of course, tornadoes being hazardous, but it's what's embedded in that wind, whether it be a roof or whatever the tornado or the winds pick up, that can be extremely dangerous. Yeah, did you see the camera shake there a little bit? That was our own Mike Seidel holding that. And yeah, well, when you get a big lightning crack like that, the thunder crack, well, that's going to shake the camera just a little bit. I'm surprised that he held it as steady as he did. But some blinding rain you can see getting blown sideways here. Again, this was in Davenport, Iowa. And Mike actually reported some hail with this. There you can kind of, it's hard to see a little bit, but it was bouncing off pea size off the top of the vehicle here. The National Weather Service, though, said they recorded hail as large as 2¼ inches in diameter. All right, so Carl just showed us where the storms are right now. Let's talk about where they're going to go as we head through the rest of the overnight. Again, the area of moderate risk, if you will, what we were calling very likely risk up here in Iowa and Illinois has been removed by the Storm Prediction Center, but they have kept the one farther south. Now again, their forecast for the overnight runs all the way to about 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. Okay, so we could see some stuff moving in much later during the overnight, even into tomorrow morning. Our biggest threat really has been the hail, not the little pea size that Mike was showing us there on that video, but we had reports, and we'll show you some video a little bit later on this hour, of almost tennis ball size hail, and it really did a number on a trucker's windshield again, and it can do a number on your head if you're not careful, but again, about that big. I mean, we're talking up to almost tennis ball size. 2-inch or greater hail threat continues in some of these storms in Iowa, even into Wisconsin at this late hour, and again along this line, which extends, we think, all the way down through Kansas and eventually into Oklahoma and maybe even North Texas as we head through the wee hours of the morning, and then eventually pulling over towards St. Louis and the Little Rock area as we head through the morning hours tomorrow. So we're not done in Little Rock, even though we may get through the night, hopefully without any big storms. That could change as we head through the morning hours tomorrow. Chicago could get hit a third time with some thunderstorms there. You've already been hit twice. And again, there's the potential for some localized flooding. We don't think it'll be widespread, but these storms are moving over some of the same areas in Wisconsin and Michigan, so we'll watch for some flooding there. Carl?
Well, they don't call it the Windy City for nothing. Damaging wind reports coming out of Chicago today. And take a look at this high-rise under construction in the city's West Loop. Large pieces of building materials flying off the structure. Wow. Look at that. That high up, those sheets may look small, but you know they're not. The Chicago Fire Department also reported wind damage to roofs, power poles, and trees. National Weather Service has issued a wind advisory for tomorrow from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. So I want to talk a little bit about how things may evolve tonight as we go through the rest of the night tonight. And looking at the model forecast here across parts of the Mid-South, we expect that there will be thunderstorms certainly along the line that is going to extend down into Oklahoma. The big question that we've been talking about for a while now is, what are we going to see out ahead of that? Are we going to see some development here in areas of Arkansas and also in Missouri? Is it going to be strong enough to really tap into the very strong wind shear that's in place? And, it's been having a harder time, that's for sure. But where these cells can get going, because there is so much wind shear in the atmosphere, they're going to be entirely capable of rotating, entirely capable of producing tornadoes. So, we don't want you to relax. We don't want you to be lulled by the fact that there hasn't been much activity and we don't see a lot off to the west, because there could yet be some very strong storms developing overnight tonight. We're definitely going to see a line of storms along with this front, and that'll be capable of producing all hazards, wind and hail, and maybe some tornadoes as well. In fact, the model indicating that there could be some embedded supercells within that even early tomorrow morning, maybe right as the sun is coming up. We could see very strong storms coming towards Fort Smith. Also a cluster of storms moving up into the Little Rock area. That'll be through the middle of the day, and then coming towards Memphis as well. Probably not as much intensity to those storms as they're moving through. But going back to where we are right now, there are no longer any tornado watches in effect, just severe thunderstorm watches over a large area from Oklahoma and Kansas up into Missouri and Iowa and into parts of Wisconsin as well. And here you see the current radar picture, and we're down to just a handful of warnings right now. We've got a couple of severe warnings in southern parts of Wisconsin, Severe thunderstorm warning in effect for Greene and Rock counties going until 10:30 this evening. Another severe thunderstorm warning in effect for Dane in Iowa and Sauk counties, that going until 10:45. One thing I wanted to show you about these storms is that when you look at the instability here, you notice that the surface-based instability is still to the south. So it's right in there. So these storms are getting to the north of that surface-based instability. They are elevated storms, and with elevated storms, you tend to have a hail risk and not much more than that. So it looks like these are primarily going to be hail producers as they move up through southern Wisconsin and northeastern parts of Iowa. Well, from winter storms to severe threats, you can stay prepared with the TWC streaming app. You can find a super stream showing you what's going on with the storm that will play uninterrupted, so you never have to turn away from live coverage here on the Weather Channel as we extend into the evening hours. You can go to streamtwc.com to get coverage you can trust for Roku, Amazon Fire, and Google TV.
Your best defense against erosion.